It's aromatic, it's green, it's boozy, and it's smoky. No, it's not your uncle after a joint and several drinks at the family barbecue. It's Viride by Orto Parisi. Stick around for this one, guys. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Tonight I'm going to be going over Viride by Orto Parisi. You know, some of my favorite perfumes, colognes, have boozy characteristics to them, but a lot of times, most of the time, it's either rum or whiskey or cognac. Very rarely do we get absinthe featured in a fragrance, but this is a really important note in Viride here, which is one of the reasons why it's one of my absolute favorites from the house of Orto Parisi. So I'm about 10 years late in reviewing this one. This one came out in 2014. Out of the entire Orto Parisi lineup, I feel like this one is the least talked about. It's absolutely overshadowed by pretty much every other member of the house. I'm talking like Teroni, Quoyum, Brutus, even Boccanera. But yeah, I think it's a real shame that this one doesn't really get talked about because it's an amazing green fragrance, and yeah, I'm just gonna get right into the review here. Viride means green in Latin, which is very appropriate because of the scent characteristics of this fragrance and also the color of the juice. It's a beautiful absinthe green color here. Really, really like that. But anyway, Alessandro Gualtieri, the owner of this house and the perfumer of this house, drew inspiration from this fragrance on a trip to Yemen, where he met a tribe called the Flower Men of Yemen. And anyway, this tribe is known for wearing crowns made of aromatic herbs and flowers. Now, these crowns give off peaceful or calming vibes, but these men are actually well known to be very strong and very skilled warriors. So there's kind of like a juxtaposition between strength and serenity. And I think it's very appropriately reflected in this fragrance because it has very strong parts, yet also some very serene, peaceful, more calming characteristics as well. So getting into the presentation here, the bottle looks the same as all the other ones from the Orto Parisi house. We can see the name of the fragrance here. On this thin side of the bottle, we can see the size, concentration, and on the back, Orto Parisi. On the bottom, we have the infinity symbol, and on the top, we have a famous Orto Parisi cap. They're all unique because inside of the top part of each cap is contained a bit of material that is reflective of the scent. So this one here has wood. The scent, honestly, to me, reminds me of being in the forest. It's a very woody fragrance. Quoyum's bottle cap has a piece of leather in the top, and I think Teroni's bottle cap has a piece of pumice, so igneous rock. So anyway, the perimeter of this bottle here is covered in iron. I believe they're all finished in iron. Very heavy bottle caps here, but also the bottles themselves are very heavy, and the caps don't really stick into place that well. There is a little bit of friction, but not that much. I wouldn't want to pick this one up by the cap. In the Orto Parisi boxes, on the front, we get the neuron. I'm not really sure what the neuron represents as far as the house goes, but this neuron does appear on all of the boxes. On top, we get the infinity logo once again. On the bottom, we get the batch code and all the usual information. These boxes open up like so, kind of in a star formation. And as you can see here in the middle, there's an inner box where the fragrance bottle actually stands. And we have these like 4 little arms that wrap around the neck of the bottle to keep it from moving around inside the box. So now let's get into the most important part, which is how this smells. In the opening, I get some wormwood and lavender. In the mid, I get fir, cedar, and juniper. And in the dry down, I get lots of tonka and lots of incense. So in the beginning, we're smashed with a big, big dose of wormwood. So wormwood is gonna smell a lot like absinthe. It's boozy, it's licoricey, it has some herbal aspects to it as well. It's a little bit woody, it's spicy. So I can tell you right off the bat, if you're not a fan of boozy accords, if you're not a fan of absinthe in particular, you're not going to like this fragrance. So that wormwood in the opening is mixed with a little bit of lavender. The lavender gives off its typical warm, spicy, floral, aromatic nuances. But I must admit that the lavender in this is not overly strong. It's definitely overpowered by the wormwood, but I think there is a little bit of a lavender characteristic as soon as the fragrance opens up, but it does go dying down throughout the lifespan of the fragrance here. So the mid is all about fir, cedar, and juniper. It's very woody. It's a little bit camphoric as well. It's very piney coming from that fir. There's a general green forest-like quality in the mid part of this fragrance that does last all the way to the end of the lifespan. And in the mid, there's a little bit of juniper. If you've ever had a gin and tonic, specifically with the tonic, you get that really effervescent carbonation coming from the tonic, but also the aromatics coming from the gin. The gin can be really sharp and aromatic, almost a little bit citrusy and slightly green in a way. Definitely, I get some of that in the mid part of this fragrance here. Really interesting, really classic kind of green perfumery, especially because of those piney characteristics and the boozy accords as well. And in the dry down of this one, it's all about tonka bean and incense. The tonka bean gives us a very creamy, almost sweet, there's like a vanillic tinge to this nutty, creamy tonka bean in the dry down here. So it really smooths out a set of otherwise fairly rough ingredients that I've mentioned in the top parts of this fragrance here. But paired with that tonka bean in the dry down here is some lovely incense. It starts off resinous. We get the citric resinous characteristics of that incense, but it ends very smoky. So in the bottom here, it's a very creamy, nutty, almost vanillic tonka bean with a very smoky incense. If I had to put it simply, that's basically what we're getting in the dry down. Really amazing fragrance here. So at the end of the day, if I was really forced to characterize this fragrance, it would be a green and aromatic fragrance, but realistically, it is so much more than that. It absolutely has characteristics of classic male perfumery, like the aromatic fougères, because of that tonka bean, because of that lavender, because of those aromatics, of course. But really, the tonka bean is turned way up in this compared to the lavender. The lavender is quite a soft note in this fragrance. And the aromatics are there, yes, but they're not really leaning into super classical territory to me, although other people's opinions on that might vary. The point I'm trying to make is that it does not smell 100% like a classic aromatic fougere fragrance. However, it definitely is on the mature side. We get like 2 different boozy accords in this. The most prominent one definitely going to be that wormwood, giving the absinthe smell. But also, like I said in the mid, there's some juniper, and the juniper in this one is effervescent. Like I said, it really reminds you of the smell and the sensation of a gin and tonic. Right? So all in all, it's a boozy, smoky, woodsy, and aromatic fragrance. When I smell this fragrance, it takes me away to a forest. I'm passing around a bottle of booze with my friends, and maybe there's some incense burning in the background. Maybe we just finished playing some songs on the guitar or something like that. This fragrance carries me away to a scene like that. I know it's completely different than the actual inspiration of this fragrance, which is the flower men of Yemen. I'm sorry, Alessandro Gualtieri. But I think at the end of the day, one of the beautiful things about this hobby that we're in, fragrance collecting, is the fact that scents are different for everybody. A scent could mean something totally different from one person to another. And I think that kind of subjectivity is really amazing, how scents can carry us away to individual places mentally like that. So anyway, let's touch on versatility and performance. I think this is a pretty versatile fragrance. I think, you know, it might be a little bit more formal. I might save this for special occasions because it does have an air of sophistication and class because of those boozy characteristics, and also because of the piney characteristics in the mid. Those characteristics definitely remind me of, I don't know, a well-established gentleman, for example. But also, I think if you really wanted to, you could wear this casually. I mean, it's not like it's a super complicated, over-the-top, totally exotic fragrance or anything like that. No, it's just really, really nice. And I think, you know, also it transcends seasons. Like, for example, I wore this in the Canary Islands this summer, and I'm going to wear it this winter as well. Just the same as I'm going to wear it in the fall and next spring. I mean, I don't really think this would stand out in one season more than another. And also, I've honestly received a numerous amount of compliments from this fragrance. You might not think that this would be kind of like the typical compliment grabbing fragrance, but for me, it absolutely has been, and I'm kind of surprised. Anyway, it just goes to show the fact that people interpret scents differently. Now, the performance on this one, not saying it's a weak fragrance, but a lot of you might be thinking that because this is an Orto Parisi offering, that it must be, you know, very strong, powerful, potent, punchy, and really long lasting. Unfortunately, it's not. This one here projects for less than an arm's length for maybe an hour, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the environment. But honestly, not a really strong projector. And the longevity is good. I get maybe 6 hours on my skin. So all in all, it's about an average performer, maybe a little bit above average. Coming from the house of Orto Parisi, a lot of people, like I said, might be expecting a real powerhouse fragrance. And this one, it definitely is not. Although I'm not complaining about the performance. For what this fragrance is, you know, the smell is so good. You know, it overrides any potential performance issues for me. But yeah, not a powerhouse from the house of Orto Parisi at all. Performance a little bit above average, but man, the smell of this fragrance is really what makes it an absolute winner in my books. Price on this one is a little bit high. So in North America, I've seen this going anywhere between 100 American dollars and like 180 American dollars. Here in Europe, kind of similar. I've seen it going between 100 euros and 160 euros. So it definitely does go on sale certain times of the year. You know, be checking those fragrance discounters, because honestly, I wouldn't really want to pay much more than 100, maybe 120 euros for this one. However, I love the scent. It's a unique scent. It doesn't smell quite like anything else out there. I was happy I was able to grab this. Actually, I got this as part of a trade, so I didn't even purchase this. But honestly, if you're a real fragrance lover, and especially if you love green, aromatic, boozy, foresty fragrances with a definite blast of incense, you're going to want to check this one out. Although still, as always, I do recommend trying to get this one at a discount. Those prices, by the way, are for the 50 milliliter bottle, which, by the way, is the only volume that Orto Parisi manufactures. That means if you see a 90 milliliter bottle of any Orto Parisi fragrance, it is not authentic. Orto Parisi only manufactures 50 milliliter bottles. Anyway, maybe one day I'll make a video dedicated to how to spot a fake Orto Parisi fragrance. Anyway, guys, that's been my review of Viride by Orto Parisi. Super underrated fragrance from the house. I highly recommend checking this one out if you like aromatic green fragrances. Until next time, guys, keep it real.